I'm Pamela Portnoy, and no one's okay. Welcome back to No One's Okay. We are back. I am here today with Tamara DeOrio.
Nailed it.
Yes, I nailed it. Finally. Thank goodness. Yeah, I kept calling her Tamara. I don't know why. My bad. Tamara DeOrio, welcome.
Thank you.
How are you today?
Well, what am I supposed to say to that? Because am I okay or not? I don't know.
I mean, we're not, and I'm definitely going to dive into how we're not later. But I was so excited that you agreed to come on the show. We are here to talk about confidence. This episode is on confidence, and I just think it's like such appropriate timing because I woke up feeling less than that, and I'm just like really looking forward to like getting your thoughts. Oh, she did not like that. I think this is something that everybody struggles with. So before we get into that, I would love to hear how you got here. Tell me about your journey. Please share as much or as little as you would like. Go!
Well, I was born... Okay, I'll skip to the fun part. Well, I'm on the other coast, right? So let's start there. I'm over in Boston, and not that I want to be. I actually want to be where you are. That's always been a dream of mine to live out in LA. But I digress. So I worked at ad agencies for many years, and I always did the events aspect, like the experiential part. And I was bringing the brand to life, and it was always working with people and like traveling and doing all these really fun, cool things. And that, in the beginning, I didn't even realize took a lot of chutzpah. What I also like to call moxie, like that ability to create a program and go out and show it to people and have them pay you for it, but really enjoy that experience. So fast forward, I was sitting at my table last year, and my daughter was watching me scroll through Instagram and seeing other people selling their photography. And I'm a photographer, and she looked at me and she's like, why are you looking at them getting all annoyed? Like, why don't you just sell your own? And I was like, listen, 7-year-old girl who doesn't know about the way things work. I'm like, well, that's just genius. And so the very next day I started my own website, and I sold 2 prints, and that was a year ago. And
Amazing.
I've sold 132 since.
That's awesome.
And that is exactly 132 more that I would have never sold if I didn't get my butt on the computer the very next day and did it. And my site looked like crap, and I had the wrong partner, but you know what? None of that mattered. I hit share and I sold, and that's what matters. And so I was telling the story and other stories about how you come to a situation and you make the decision to rally or not. And all these women were DMing me saying, I love that story. Can you say it again? Like the one where you took that job and you didn't know what you were doing, but you taught yourself and you figured it out. Like that just really inspired me. And it started resonating with this coaching word. And I was like, what are you talking about being a coach? I don't know what this is. I've never had a coach. What is this thing? And they were like, just be my coach. And so the coaching career started. I now help self-doubting women, especially business women, become so deeply confident in their products and in themselves that they can show up and market to the world and scale their business. So this is both a kind of a literal and figurative take on showing up in front of and behind the camera to take the shot, right? So nowadays, especially on social, we have to show our face. We have to do reels. We have to do all these things, whether or not we want to or not, we enjoy them or not, it doesn't matter. So how are we going to figure that out? How are we going to find that inner confidence to show up and also sell our products? And
Absolutely.
So that kind of trifecta that I built with the confidence and the photography and the social part, those 3 pieces blend together so well in this space. And I love all 3. I'm
Are
one
you
of those
having
like
the best
crazy
time?
women who like absolutely, I love photography. This is my medium for sure. I love to write. I love to inspire. I love to help women. All of that. So finding a job doing that, I'm okay with that.
More than okay with that. I absolutely love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
What would you say, um, like, how would you define confidence?
It's a state of mind. It is totally a state of mind. It's like, it comes from the Latin word fidere, which means to trust. And that is trusting in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really it. When you have the ability to say, you know what, I can do that. And then you go and do it. I mean, that's confidence in action, which is actually what I call my program. But I think confidence can mean different things to everyone. I mean, everyone has their own way of inferring what confidence means to them, whether that means that you can go and interview for a job or travel around the world by yourself or, you know, go on a rocket into space. It's at different levels. And I think having that state of mind, whatever that means to you, but the ability to take action from it and to lean into it and to believe that you're going down the right path and you have what it takes already inside you to go and do that thing. That's taking that inner self trust and using it.
Mm-hmm. I feel like in the past when I have looked or thought about confidence, I always knew that it took bravery to be confident.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think those words are actually interchangeable. I mean, in some contexts, yes. But what would you say like the main difference is between just straight up bravery and being confident? I mean, the way I look at it is you can be confident and still be afraid, but you can also be brave and still be afraid. Is it the same thing?
And then put them together in a sentence. And that's me going on a roller coaster.
Got it.
So a month ago, we were down in Florida and we're at Orlando, like Universal. And I have two little kids, 7 and 9. And they were like, oh, we're not going on the roller coaster. And I'm like, okay, little Miss Confident over here who doesn't like roller coasters. They're not my jam. Like, that's not my thing. But I think the word brave can be put into there because I'm confident, but I don't like things that like scare me. I think bravery is more in the like doing things that you just are afraid of, like killing a spider is being brave. So I went and got on the roller coaster and I pooped my pants, but I did it. And after, it's all I can remember from the trip in the best way.
Yes.
Like, no one else was going to do this thing. We are at a park with Ferris wheels and roller, all these big, amazing rides. I have to go do this.
Yes.
And it was like this mindset that I had. I was like, all right, I'm confident. I'm going to go do this thing. I don't care if I put my pants. Like that's the nature of what's going to happen. Then so be it. But I think I instilled the bravery part of getting the guts to go and do it. And I think it is two different words. I think you nailed it.
So I think it's really funny because they do sort of go hand in hand, like you just explained. And I think it takes a certain confidence to step up to be brave. And I think you can gain confidence after you do something brave as well.
And I think you can go skydiving, which I've done, which was brave, girl. But I don't think you necessarily, do you have to be confident to be brave? Because you could swim with sharks, but I don't know if that makes you confident. You could just be like, dude, let's go swim with sharks. Like, I'm crazy. Like maybe you're drinking and you have that like shield of bravery, but I don't know if that makes you confident.
That's so interesting.
This is a whole nother. I mean, do we have how much?
How are we going to unravel this?
Now I need that drink.
Okay, so how would you suggest someone were to like lean in to confidence? How do you, what are things that you suggest people could do once in a while, every day, to help them get confidence back or gain it for the first time?
I like cheat sheets, right? So like make it easy for yourself. So today, because that is my name, Today with Tamara. And that's kind of like my thing too, is like, just go and do the damn thing, because I think the more you hem and haw and think about it, it's like, it's over. So, okay, make a list, right? And you're going to do this, make a list of all of the great things that you've done that you were like, wow, I did that. Like skydiving, right? Like going on that roller coaster, like, nailing that presentation, or asking for a raise, or getting, the interview, or whatever this is, right? Getting the lead role, starring in the show. Like you were nervous, you were scared, but you did it and you overcame it. And like, wow, make a actual, like, write it down and see it like a physical list, right? And then when you are in the middle of this major episode of self-doubt and you're like, I cannot go for that audition, I cannot ask, for a raise. You look at that list, and I keep it on my phone, I keep it on my computer, keep it on a list on the fridge. And I'm like, oh yeah, I did that. I went through 2 labors. I moved to another country. Like I had a divorce. I had like whatever it is on your list, all of a sudden it almost like makes what you're going through now seem so much more manageable and feasible and relatable. You're like, oh, I could do this. I went through that. This is nothing.
This is
right.
Easy.
So it kind of brings it back into perspective, where it's like, okay, you've gone through 20 of these huge episodes in your life. This is just one of them. You can put on the list and you can do check mark, and then it's in the past. Like you can go through this and you will make it, and tomorrow will be another day. I think that is a really easy, we can all do that right now. Like that is a no-brainer, right? One of the other things is at night when we go to bed, I feel like that's a big time when we are like, lights are out, we lay down, and we're like, either we are in a good mood or a bad mood. I don't really know about the indifferent mood. Like, do you ever go to bed and you're like, today was okay?
No, that is like the opposite of my mentality. Yeah. It's never, I'm gonna have feelings about it one way or another, and if I feel like that area of indifference, it's just because I'm not really taking a good look at it.
So in order to kind of quiet the voices, to be able to go to have sleep, a nice comfortable sleep, and then the morning be ready, is to make a plan for the morning, to kind of look at what, I don't want to like psychoanalyze the whole day, because like if you had a bad day, you don't want to start thinking about all the bad things. But if you can think about tomorrow and how the very first thing, what is that first thing that you're going to do, and make something of interest, like make something exciting, make something like that you want to look forward to, that can kind of set the day, set the tone of the day. And then that way you are feeling rested and excited for the next day, and just saying like, whatever I didn't finish today, I can put it to tomorrow, and here's how I'm going to do it different, right? Here's going to put a spin on it. And it could be something so simple, like even starting your day with like loud, fun music and like getting ready, like dance. Like I never listen to music in the morning, but how fun would that be, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's like changing up your meal, like waffles and ice cream or something, like so fun. Like, especially if you have, kids, or like you just change it up and you're like, whoa, it's almost like a shock to your mental system. Right. Mm-hmm. So the point here is that you're kind of taking what worked and what didn't, and you're putting it on a list, and you're making an action plan. That way you feel like you are in charge, right? You're in charge of the day tomorrow, right? And you're going to say, this is, I'm going to map it out. So you're feeling more, you're calm, you're empowered, you're feeling like, okay, tomorrow is another chance, right? It's almost like hitting that reset button, the easy button, like I'm going to start all over again, and I'm going to shake it off. And this is another opportunity. Mm-hmm. And that, I feel like it makes you, excited and opportunistic, right? And I think that, combined with the kind of self-trust, it really makes it so much better and easier to face another day.
I think it's so interesting that you're talking about setting your intentions for the next day the night before, because I actually just had surgery a few days ago, and it was a very like minor surgery. It went well. But one thing I was told before I went under was you are going to come out of this the way you go in. So like, don't be scared because then you'll wake up like freaking out. And so I know this is like, this is way different than what we're talking about, but I think mindset is so important because I like actively made the decision to be happy and jokey, even though I was a little bit afraid because I've never had surgery before. And then I woke up delighted in a great mood.
Where you left off.
Yes. 100%.
So interesting.
And so I just feel like that's so helpful because I know that a lot of the time when you're having a bad day, you could go to bed feeling like crap. And sometimes you just really need a good night's sleep. And a lot of the time that fixes things. But I feel like if you add that sense of extra intention, I wholeheartly agree with you. I think that can help a lot in how you start your next day. Excuse me.
You can't change what happened.
Yeah.
In the day, but you have another chance tomorrow, whether you yelled at people or you were angry or you got frustrated or, like it's a chance to start over. And I think especially like if your listeners are parents, like that is a big freaking deal about being a parent or being a spouse or in a relationship. And those kinds of things, those are very, very personal, right? Like I feel like more of the gut wrenching stuff that you kind of like really analyze and kind of lose sleep over, right? I'm not losing sleep over the dishes. I'm losing sleep over like the fact that, like I got mad at my kid because they wouldn't brush his teeth 10 times in a row. So like, it's that kind of stuff. But I think when we lean into our confidence again, when I'm using that kind of analogy is doing things that you also empower yourself with. And one of the things that I love to do is taking me time.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
And I think that, oh, thank God. And is it easy for you? Or do you find you carry guilt when you're like, oh, I should take some time off?
I've gotten
like
good
your surgery.
once.
Your surgery you like had to do, right? But like,
oh my
if you're just going on a vacation or you're just like going to take the night off with the girls or,
I don't feel guilt when I've like made like a thorough plan. Like if I'm like, I'm going to go away for the night, I'm going to take myself on a date, I'm going to take myself to dinner. That's great. But if I like decide to just chill at home and, put my phone or my computer in the other room, ooh, I get antsy. Very antsy. Yeah. I always try to end up, I'm like, what can I be doing to be productive?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So taking me time is it critical? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you do
so
for your
there
me
were
time?
several opportunities that I had to go and travel for work. And you can look at it as like, well, that's your job. But then, other women, moms, they were like, how do you go? And I'm like, well, how do you stay? Like, I don't understand. Like, I have an incredible opportunity. I have to take it.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of me time, though, I told my family the other day, I was like, you know what? I kind of want to just go on my own for a couple of days. I want to go, like my mom was away. She lives an hour away. The house was empty. She was like, sure, you can come and use it. And I was like, I think I need a couple of days. And my husband's like, well, I have a dentist appointment. And I'm like, you figure that out. The kids will get to school. You'll figure that out. But I said to the kids, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go to Grammy's house for a couple nights. I just need some quiet time on my own. Are you cool with that? And they're like, yeah, sure. No worries. But if you don't ask and you start like analyzing and thinking, assuming they can't live without me, nothing's, the house is going to be a mess. They can't get to school. What are they going to eat? What are they going to wear? Like no one can operate without me. That's the whole, like it's a martyr. You know, it's like getting into the cycle of, I just can't leave. I have to be here.
Right.
And I don't know at what point I was like, I actually don't need to be here. Everyone is completely fine. But I've talked to some women that just have a really big block with this. And they don't feel like they can take the weekend away with their girls because they have to be home. It's too much to ask of their husband, or, you know, who's going to take care of the kids. And I was talking to a woman for like an hour, and we finally got down. I was like, so kind of, you know, combating every single line. I was like, well, you know, this won't happen. This is just made up in your head. And then we got to the point where she was like, I just don't want to come home to dirty dishes. And that's her thing. It's not my thing. That's her thing. And so I was like, I understand. I hear you. So how can we fix that? If it's a real thing to you, maybe you say to your husband or to the kids even, do they have chores? Like, maybe this is something that you can start saying, like, can you at least load the dishwasher and turn it on? And then when I go home, there's clean dishes. You know, like, let's just try and break it down. Whatever, and I'm trying to say now, big picture, whatever that roadblock is that's holding you back, there has to be a solution. There's an alternative. There has to be. Right. You can't tell me that something is impossible. There's 7 billion people in the world. Like, someone has figured out a way to get the dishes clean so that when you come home, you're not freaking out.
For sure. And that is interesting. I think about that sometimes. You described it as, you know, being a martyr. And I understand, like, there's a lot of when you are in a relationship and when you have a family, there are so many things that you're thinking about all the time that it's just like really easy to kind of put your own needs to the side. But at the end of the day, I feel like it's better for everyone if you also take care of yourself. Right?
Speak my language.
I love that. So you went away for a few days, and how were you feeling when you were away?
Fantastic. And you know what? I've done it for weeks on end for work. And I went to Russia, and guess what? There's this thing called FaceTime, and we talked like every day. So when I walked in the door, they were like, "What's up? Back to the TV," because they just talked to me. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like we have so many tools now. I mean, we have texting. I mean, we can always be in touch no matter what. But it's again planning. If you feel more comfortable and confident that you can leave because you've put into place a plan, like someone was going to bring them food, or, you know, like they had their list of chores, or, you know, there's always ways of figuring out what the problem is. What is making you anxious? And then write it down. Big fan of paper and pen. Write it down and say, okay, what is this thing? Is this a fact? Is this really going to happen? How do we analyze? How do we break this? How do we dissect this problem that is giving me anguish so that I feel more confident being able to go, or being able to whatever that need is, that opportunity is, because you can't self-sacrifice. You can't not take the trip. You can't not take the job because you feel like, oh, but I have to. Okay, no, you don't. No, you don't.
Yeah.
I hate to make it sound so simple, but there's an option. There are always, oh my God, my dad always loved that word, options. And he's the one who loved photography and taught me how to do that at a young age. Like, there's a lot of weird analogies and things that like come back when you start to put them all together. It's like, wow, you know, this isn't here by accident. I love my job, and I've basically been leading up to it for a long time, and I didn't even know it.
That's so interesting. I love that. I'm so excited that you decided to do this. This is wonderful. It's interesting because we were touching a little bit on the relationship between confidence and productivity. What would you say about, because you're incorporating photography into what you do now, and what would you say to people that are looking to get more confidence in terms of like body image or just like being themselves, physically, spiritually, not just, intellectually and in their work life.
Well, look at all of the most popular things that we like to watch, right? In entertainment. Why is Instagram forcing our hand into reels? Entertainment.
Yeah.
They want people to have more fun on this platform. And really, it's about having a good laugh. I mean, we share our stories and our messages, and you go to different feeds for different things, but this is the space that they've decided that they want us to come and have a good time. And the more you watch the bigger pieces, the bigger content that gets the most likes, it's real and raw.
That's what I love about TikTok. I recently started, making little videos, but I've mainly just been watching my like For You page, but I'm trying to get the confidence to make more content. And the ones, you're so right, the ones that people respond to the most are, people just talking, sharing like some of their deepest, darkest secrets, some like just being real rather than curating something that people think other people will respond to.
You ever watch the bloopers and laugh your ass off and you're like, oh my God, we can't end the movie now, we gotta watch the bloopers at the end?
I will seek out the bloopers on YouTube just for like a laugh to elevate my mood. I'll watch
because it
hours.
Is the real funny stuff, right? It is the real gems that you can't like make up. And I always say too, when you go to record yourself, like when I put my phone towards me and I talk and I screw up or I say something stupid, or that's the one that I share, because that's the one that will get the most comments and likes. When I'm crying, I get like DMs up the wazoo. Like, oh my God, thank you so much for sharing. That was so real. That was so positive. That was so inspiring. We need more of that in this life. Like, I hate seeing all these perfect little squares and I don't want to see that anymore. Just show me everything. And so I started doing what's called like, you know how you always see those before and after pictures?
Yeah.
And you're like, well, that's great, but you kind of missed the middle. Like, you didn't really show me. And I don't even, and this is another question. I don't know if there's a difference between behind the scenes versus the middle. Because, and I was trying to explain this the other day, I was like, well, I get that there's like this little emoji that says like behind the scenes, and I get that. It's like what I'm doing here. But I also feel like the people call it the messy middle. I feel like I'm resonating more with that, because it's like, okay, I'm telling you that I didn't have a photography business, and now I'm telling you I do, but here's how I did it, right? Here's the crap I went through. Like, I went through 4 different sites that didn't work, and these are them, and this is why it didn't work, right? Like, I made a reels, and that's great, but now I'm going to tell you how I made the reels, because if I'm asking you to show up, I have to show you, I have to give you the tools. So I posted the reels, and then the very next post I did step 1. This is how I did it. Right. And it's not just like push this button. It's like, I physically got my shirt, changed it, ran back to my table, hit the button, screwed up 10 times, like the middle. Like you can learn how to make a reels in addiction. Like you can figure that part out, but it's the actual real life middle where no one really shares that with you.
People connect to that more.
Bingo.
Way more. That's so interesting. I was listening to an interview that Keira Knightley was giving in regards to confidence yesterday. And she was talking about how the things that she loves the most about people, the things that she thinks are the most beautiful about other people, are a lot of the times their imperfections.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
And I feel like that is what connects people. There is such thing as like aspirational, genres and like television and like Instagrams, like people enjoy seeing like people having nice lives and people like on the beach and like having a perfect day, but I don't know if we truly connect to that. Does that make sense? And I'm fully guilty of this because I think it takes a lot of confidence and bravery to post or talk about the things that aren't going great, you know? Mm-hmm. And a lot of the time I'm like, well, I don't want to like be stuck in the negative. But you could also share your journey with a positive spin on it. Sort of. I love how like I'm just unpacking this with you or trying to unpack this with you. I knew I would have trouble with this.
I feel like I'm like, well, tell me more about that word negative. So wait, but you don't want to be stuck in the negative. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, like if I'm having just like a shitty day, which everybody has a shitty day. Yep. I feel like there's this culture that's like, okay, well, don't dwell on the shittiness. Yeah. So a part of me gets self-conscious about, you know, venting or complaining. You know, I have a thing that my friends really get annoyed with me when I do. I apologize after I vent.
Oh, don't apologize.
I know. And then that's what they say. And they're like, what are you doing? Like, what if we apologized after we vent? I'd be like, well, I wouldn't have it. But there's just this culture of like, is that what toxic positivity is?
Apologize when you actually need to. It is such a loose slip of the tongue. Like I was just in the supermarket and she was in the same lane. She was like, oh, sorry. I'm like, why? Because I own the aisle? Like, what are you sorry for? What are you sorry for? Just move your car. I'll move my cart. Like, have a nice day. Like, you don't need to put yourself, and I don't want to say put yourself down, but like you're taking on this assumption that you're doing something wrong when you are clearly in the right. Your girlfriends are supposed to hear your problems. You're supposed to unload on them. That's what they're there for. Don't apologize. We all have crappy days.
For sure.
There's not, why on earth? They need to hear it. You need to share it to them. Like that is part of the circle of life. Like that is why we have, you know, our besties so that we can do that.
So we can, you know, have a healthy emotional life because sometimes you need to unload. And I think that having close friends that you can do that with makes you live longer.
There you go. Drink.
But there's there is that fear though. For sure. And I don't know where it comes from.
You tapped into something. You said something that's like when things are different about us, like elements that make us feel uncomfortable, you know, and it could even be your voice. It could be your accent. And maybe you've seen this on screen. I've run into a couple people that have had serious problems showing up because of their voice. A man has an accent from Brazil. He has a hard time feeling comfortable because he feels like he has to explain why he has an accent. Well, I used to live in Brazil, and so I have this accent. It's like, dude, we get it. You know, like you use it. It's beautiful. Like, why would you ever feel embarrassed or try to hide it? I have a client who has a very like a soft, high-pitched voice. And so she sounds very young. I love it. It's beautiful. But people literally laugh at her when they hear it. And so it's so amazing how you can see it from both sides, right? So like you're the person speaking, you're like, I'm afraid to speak because it sounds different. And the other person's like, oh my God, you sound different. Right? So you can understand the situation from both sides.
Definitely.
But to not live your life because of something you were born with,
for sure,
is outrageous.
The world needs you.
And more of that.
Yeah.
You imagine you tell your kid that was born without an arm, well, you need to stay home because you can't go outside looking like that. Like you wouldn't.
That's out of control. No.
Like, and it's amazing how they say, like, you know, whatever you would say to yourself, like, would you tell your kid that or your friend that? Like, and I say that a lot. If you're sitting here saying, I can't do this, I suck, I'm not a good photographer, I'm not good for that job, would I tell my daughter or son that? Are you out of your mind?
100%. I always get so upset at when my loved ones do what I just described I do to myself, which is, I'll give them a compliment and they'll be like, oh no, which I do all the time. I'm like, hey, be nice to my friend. You be nice. Cut that out. I'm not allowing you to say mean things about my friend. Just don't.
I just did an exercise with my kids. Okay, they're 7 and 9. So my son is 9. And I said, we're going to do this thing. How would you describe me to your friends? And it was such a cool experience for me because he was like, well, you're nice, you're fun, you're a good photographer and all these like really great things. Like you should try it with your friend. Like, how would you describe me? Because it makes you feel good, right? It fills up your heart. And then I did the same to him. I said, well, I would describe you as blah, 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 blah. And he looked at me and he goes, thank you. Instead of what could have happened where you'd be like, oh, come on. No, I'm not that good. Or seriously. And I love how it just landed and he took it.
Oh, that just like.
Right?
Yeah, that's really nice.
I made you cry, Drink.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those beautiful moments, like, and it shows so many different things. Like one, it was like really taking a minute to pause and to look at the other person and say like, well, what I really do love about you is blah, blah, blah. And then letting it land with that person. And it's almost like a fun little ritual or tradition you can do like every once in a while, like, especially when you're not feeling good. It's like, all right, hit me up. What am I good at? It's like a little confidence boost, but to have it coming from someone else, and especially like he happens to be young, so it's a very different perspective on things. Like I think some people sometimes, like adults, we would be like, well, we have to say that they're good at cooking because they're a chef, so it's a little bit more kind of raw and real and kind of through those naive eyes. Like when my daughter said, well, why don't you just sell your photography? And I was like, because, like I can't. And
you're like, I have no real good reason.
Bingo. And then I did it. But when my mom said it 100 times, I didn't listen to her. But when she said
it's hard to listen to mom sometimes.
Yes. Moms are like the last person you ever take advice from. They're like, oh, please. Why would I ever be a
Sorry,
coach?
Mom, who's fully watching this right now. Yeah. That's wonderful. How would you say, okay, I really had like a complex question, but I don't know how to phrase it, so I might have to get back to it. What would you say is the relationship that you have with confidence as you get older?
Better, stronger.
Me amazing. Too.
Most amazing. And I don't know if that's normal.
I was talking to my friends about that.
As a kid, and then like when you get older, you're like, oh my God, all these people are doing it better than me. And here's the weird thing. Do you have self-limiting beliefs? Like, do you have those voices where you're like, oh girl, I can't go for that role?
I really honestly, try to be aware. Yes, the answer is yes. That's the honest answer. But I try to really, really be aware of when it's happening. And I just started, I like your idea more of like asking someone outside of myself to say nice things to me. I'll just call up my friend after this and be like, can you say some nice things about me, please? Because I've taken
it in text so that they can send it to you and you have it as a list, right? And then you can keep that list with you like you wrote it. It'll be great.
I think that'll be super helpful. But I've like, without even like really thinking too much about it, I have recently started to, because I mean, this is a relatively new endeavor, particularly like as I'm now hosting this show on my own now. There are moments where I'm like, so I've taken to trying to just quiet everything down, sit with myself, and I try to look at myself from the outside. If I were my friend, which I'm my friend, but if I were my friend outside of me, what would I notice and say? Because sometimes we're so like caught up in our own stuff that we don't look at ourselves objectively. And I do notice that that's helping me, but it is tough. It is tough to separate. yourself sometimes.
Yeah.
Here's the complex thing that I wanted to bring up earlier. With confidence, my gosh, my brain, this is like I knew this would be so hard to do.
I know you can do it.
Okay, I can do it.
You've got this. You can do it. You're okay. Let's hear it.
I might need a second to like gather them, and I can like maybe cut it, but we'll see. We go through life learning all these lessons and going through all these experiences, which inevitably, like you mentioned before, we can have that list of the things that we've been through, and we can keep that and always relate back to that. As like, I've been through that, I've accomplished that, I can do that. Don't you sometimes wish it was automatically ingrained to your body and that you didn't have to put in the work by remembering what you've been through, and you're just like, oh, I've leveled up. I now am this person and I don't have to do the work to remember that I am so badass. Does that make any sense?
Beyonce. I mean, that would just be it. You would have like, there you go. That's what. Like,
do you think Beyonce has days where like she's just like, well, I don't know, or is she just like automatically like leveling up every day? Every day she's like, oh, I just did this tour, I did this thing, I'm so fierce and badass. Does she just live it, or does she have to remind herself too?
Can you picture? I mean, she is the epitome of fierceness.
Yes.
Can you picture her sitting there thinking, oh, I don't know if I can do that. Like, I just can't, like, I can't see that. That would be something that I would be
gobsmacked.
Like, maybe, I don't know. Maybe she had, I mean, I'm guessing. But wait, that could be brave versus confident. Because like, I think she has this total air, like she's very confident in herself, but maybe if she's afraid of something, maybe it's just more of the brave thing. Like, I don't know, doesn't want to get in the roller coaster. Maybe that could be it.
Or maybe the practice that we're talking about, the practice of, remembering and acknowledging and looking outside, looking at ourselves objectively at how awesome we are.
Yes.
By practicing that, eventually, like any other thing that you practice, you should become expert level at.
It becomes a habit.
Yes, it becomes a part of how you operate.
Absolutely.
So maybe I just haven't been doing it as often and consistently as I should. And if I do it, maybe I'll just like level up and be like, oh, this is how I operate now. I don't have to like.
I love how your voice just changed when you did that.
I don't even know what I did.
Level up. So this morning, so on Facebook, I created a page. It's Today with Tamara as my handle, and it's called Confidence in Action. And so I was on my Peloton this morning. I ride my bike in the morning, and I did this ugly little video of me sweating to death, asking people to share their morning routine. I'm like, well, when you wake up, like, are you overwhelmed already at all the things you have to do? Or like, are you going to crush this day? And I have 10 points on how to start your day. Everything from like preparing the night before to, not hitting the snooze button. But like, I go really like in depth on each one of these. And literally one of them says, and I'm going to scroll back to it. I said, about Beyonce. It says something like, we all have the same hours in the day. Do you seriously think that Beyonce sits there hitting the snooze button and not taking advantage of her opportunities? Like, she's just not sitting there wasting time. And that whole same like 24 hours in the day, it's like we all have the same opportunity. So when you see somebody else, like, how on earth are they doing it? It's just because they're setting a priority. And I do this a lot too. When I feel like I'm in a rut and I'm not getting anything accomplished, it's like, okay, let's focus on what is the most important thing that I need to do that's going to get me where I want to be. It's not the laundry. It's not making the bed, which I do not do. It is going to be writing that email to that person. It is going to be making the phone call to that person. It is going to be writing that piece that I need to get published. It's going to be finishing that project that I started a year ago. And those are the things that you just push everything aside. I don't need to do this. I don't need to do that. It really means nothing to me. This means so much. It's so big that if I can finish this or do this or nail this or whatever it is, it's going to change everything.
Yes.
And we all have that thing we need to do. And here's the thing. We don't even know if it's small or big. Like, everyone's like, oh, baby steps, little steps. I'm taking a little step today. Or like, this is a big deal. This is a big step. Like, sometimes the little steps that we think we took end up being enormous. And the big stuff that we thought were like, well, that really actually didn't even do anything.
Yeah.
So take all the steps to find out. Like, such small, like, little things that I've done that I'm like, so flip, like, well, fine, I'll make the extra delivery and drive this piece of art to this woman's house. It's an hour away. And my husband's like, what do you like? Why? And I'm like, well, one, it's customer service. It's a brand new client. I go to her store. She ends up owning a whole restaurant where she hangs art.
Mm-hmm.
And we're looking around and I'm like, oh. And she looks at me, she's like, do you want to hang your art here? And 2 weeks later, I drove back with like 20 pieces, hung them up, and started a business there and sold them all.
That's amazing.
But if I thought the little step, the inconvenient step, was just to drive over to her and drop off this one piece, led to a huge opportunity that I had no idea was coming.
Absolutely.
So, and then sometimes when you're like, oh, I'm going to be on this, on this show, and you think, well, this is going to open up so many doors, and it ends up being a flop, like, you just don't know. So you have to give yourself the opportunity, whether or not you think it's big or small, just go for it.
I agree 100%. A lot of this conversation, we've been talking about how sometimes we can be our own worst enemy when it comes to our confidence. And I think it comes from a fear of what other people will think.
Yeah.
Or putting yourself out there. So what happens, and frankly, I would be shocked to hear if like someone, said anything negative to you, but have you had the occasion of someone of like that fear coming true outside of yourself? And how did you deal with it differently once it happened?
Just recently, with now on social, I had twice, I think, in the past like 2 years, like just snippet comments from people I don't know, especially on like the reels virals. When you get so many people, it's like it just, brings out the riffraff. And I look at it, and one, I'm like, okay, is this real or not? And then if I think it's a real person, I write back something with respect, right? I'm not going to go down that hole with them. Like, this one guy recently wrote, what the hell? Like, WTH. And at first I was like, did he mean WTF? Like, what did he write? And I was like, WTH, what the hell? Okay. And it was a piece I did on beauty. Like, beauty comes within. Yeah. It's not how you look. You can show up on the camera, because it's really about what you're sharing and who you are as a person.
And how you make other people feel. And
yes, that was it.
Yeah.
And so when he said, and I didn't erase it, and he wrote, what the hell? And I was like, I'm going to go with this. And I said, well, I'm just explaining that, beauty comes from how you treat others and, how you make people feel around them. And then he's like,
very polite way of saying, what's confusing you about this?
Yeah, like what you're not doing is what I'm saying is the beautiful part. And he wrote back like nicely, like, got it. So I think he realized she's not going to go there with me. Maybe he didn't really mean it that way, but I set the record straight. This is my feed. This is what I'm sharing. Yeah. If you choose to come into my world and say something rude to me, A, I'm not going to take that. B, I'm not going to go there. And C, I'm not going to delete it. But I'm going to start this conversation where I'm going to say, if you're going to come on here and say something, I'm going to respond to you. And then I want you to respond to me back. But I want you to think about how you're going to do it, right?
Right.
Because we're all watching. And this is social media. And it's a platform for everyone. But there's also a level of respect, especially if you're on my page. You can say what you want on
100%.
your own page. I don't care about that. But when you're here in my world, where my friends see this, not allowed.
I absolutely love that. I also recently had a negative comment, and it took I was just, I know intellectually that someone somewhere is going to have a problem with what you're saying, no matter what it is that you're saying or doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's still kind of, it always surprises me. It never is. I don't know how to explain this.
It stings.
Always.
Think about where that person is coming from. Are they
Right.
saying it because they're jealous or they're angry or they're upset or they are coming from another place that you cannot understand? Right? You don't know what mood they're in, what environment they're in. Maybe they aspired to have or say what you do. You never know. So I think we need to give them some grace and say, you know what? I'm not going to take your pile of poop on. And if you want to be angry and if you want to be upset with me, I think what I said was totally fine. This is my right to say this. And I'm not even saying anything crazy. Like this is, like I can't imagine you saying something that was like so horrible where I'd be like, oh my God, you just said that. But like, even if you did, you're allowed. And guess what? That person has a right to not like it.
100%.
But the way they come across you is subject. Like that is where they could have done better.
For sure. And I think by using the tools that some of which you've been outlining for us on this show very beautifully, by practicing those things, I feel like the less and less that would be able to rock someone.
Yeah. I had a friend on Instagram who told me, she's like, we were in a presentation and my coworker ripped off my work. Like totally just took it and presented it like it was her own. And she's sitting there stunned and didn't say anything. And I'm like, well, instead of you can be angry at her for sure, but think of where she's coming from, because clearly she is lacking something, whether she's lacking her own self-confidence or her own self-belief that she can do the work just as good as you can, or she's definitely hurting. So maybe it's like more empathy and like feeling bad for the other person, but like, I'm not going to lose my sleep because you are having problems in your life, and I'm not going to take that on.
Yes.
I know I did the work and I did the work great, and it was so great that you stole it. So just having that self-belief. And she was like, you know what, whether it's karma or, everyone has a kind of beliefs on how you can get over this. But I think it's just to keep going and not let it get the best of you, because it is so easy to go down that hole with them and just get angry and lose sleep and get frustrated and even lose kind of that self-trust where you're like, what do I have to now copyright everything? Like how far do you go with your work, right? As an artist, as a creator, as a copywriter, as a content writer. I mean, I think it's so interesting. I know that we were talking about even films that show confidence. And I think can we start talking about that?
That was going to be my next question. I love that you just like did my work for me. Good job. Yay. Two great minds think alike. Please.
Love it. And it's so funny because when we were starting to talk about what we're going to discuss, I started making this list, and I was like, at first I thought, well, I don't know how many we're going to get. But I am actually really happy with how many there are. And I think there should be more movies and shows on showing or portraying confidence. in men and women and in kids. And I think even in kids, because I think that's where it starts.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm psyched that we've been watching movies like Sing. I love Sing.
I actually haven't seen it.
Girl, go now today.
I haven't seen Sing, and I haven't seen Moxie, which I assume is very much in this realm.
Yes, it's on the list. It's so good. Even like The Incredibles, like all these kind of animated shows, but it has strong women in it too, and strong kids, which I really love. There's all types of gamuts, right? There's like the educational ones, like Hidden Figures, like some really good kind of educational styles. Then there's like the Thelma and Louise that is like, we're going all out, like going from despair and divorce and leaving and hurt and shame to like owning yourself and your own self-trust. A League of Their Own. I made a list.
I love it.
Devil Wears Prada.
I just watched The Devil Wears Prada. That's wonderful.
The Hunger Games. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. 100%.
The book and the movie. Oh my God, the book was so good too. And then lighter ones like Clueless.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Oh, and Sex and the City.
Absolutely.
Are you kidding?
Absolutely.
Like for real. There's so many when you start thinking about it. And then I was like, oh my God, and this one, and this one. And I am honestly, I don't watch a ton of TV.
Totally.
But apparently there's a Netflix piece on confidence that I'm going to go
really? Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm going to have to watch it and I'll report back. That's wonderful.
Yes, we'll do that. We'll switch notes.
I love that. I thought of Legally Blonde. And I thought of, have you seen the film Sabrina?
Oh.
With Julia Ormond and Harrison Ford?
That's been out for a while, right?
Yes, it was a remake of an Audrey Hepburn film. 90s movie. I've watched it probably more than any other movie in my life. I like grew up watching that with my family. And
yes. We've seen it. Oh my God.
Which actually is going to lead into like a question that I had for you, because in the movie, the main character goes away to a new job in Paris.
Yeah.
And she comes back just like after being gone probably over a year, and she comes back just new because she had the experience of doing it on her own for that long.
Mm-hmm. Travel is really big on building self-confidence.
I was going to ask you this. Huh?
Especially traveling on your own.
So I have a segment on this show called Silly Questions to Take Seriously, and they never really end up being very serious. I mean, very, very silly, because it's great. And the first question I had for you was, what was it like to be lost in a country that you didn't speak the language in for 24 hours?
I wish I did it now. I wish I had that experience now, because I would see it through such different eyes. I would probably do the same thing, because I'm like still so like clueless on how to travel. I've traveled. I've been to 15 countries. I've been to every state. I've been all over the world, and I love it, love it, love it. And I think this is another reason. I'm an only child. Big surprise.
Me too.
Both parents are from Europe, and so I'm first generation, born in New York, in Long Island, and we just traveled all over. Both my parents were in sales, and so that was like our thing. And so it was fine that they would put me on a plane in Boston, and that I would get to my uncle's house in southern France by myself at the age of 13. It is a really long story, but we could make a movie out of it, because when I get to Charles de Gaulle, there was, of course, a strike, and the man who was supposed to meet me never found me. And so I figured out how to call my uncle using a payphone, where you have to get one of those cards, a chip card, which you have to go buy, like all these things. And I remember this like Japanese woman who spoke English helped me. I mean, I'm carrying my bags. It's summer. I'm wearing shorts. My bags are like chafing my legs. I'm carrying all these things. I'm like trying to get through the airport. It's on strike. It's a mess. Everyone's yelling in French. Oh my God. So I find the subway to the train station. I found the train station. I asked this guy with the map. I'm holding the map in the subway. Like, you don't know where you're going. I get to the train station. I end up buying a ticket. I don't even know how much money I spent. I just gave him my credit card. I was like, oh, my dad's credit card. Like, get on the train. it was like a 6-hour ride from like Paris down to southern France. And I was like in the middle of the night, I get there, I'm 13 and I'm sitting on the sidewalk and I think my uncle's coming to get me. And then a policeman starts walking over and they're like, oh, who are you? And I'm like, je m'appelle, like no clue. So the police station where they are like interrogating these like other kids that were sleeping in the train. Like it was just nuts. So finally my uncle comes and he is a painter. So he's in this like big jalopy old van with like all the painting crap in the back. And I'm like, sitting in the back, there's no seatbelts or anything. And it's my cousin, the three of us are in the van and we're bopping along. It's like, I don't know, 1, 2 in the morning at this point. And a deer kind of pops out, those trees that are all planted symmetrically. He pops out and then he like goes back into the woods and we're like, fine. All of a sudden we're driving and the thing runs into the van.
Oh my God.
We stop at the vet's house in the middle of the night, knocking on because, we live on a farm with animals. So we have friends with the vet. And he's like, okay, just, go home and I'll come by in the morning. So the deer was a doe, a female deer.
Right. A drop of
like
golden sun.
It was just, it was nuts. So then that night under a full moon, we buried it in the cemetery next to the cow. I cannot make all this up. It was the most bizarre. I was like, I called my mom the next day. I was like, you'll never believe what just happened to me.
Oh my goodness.
And that story is something that, like it happened in your past and you're like, oh yeah, I was lost in France. And then someone caught wind of that. They were like, oh, come again? And when I shared it on Instagram, all of a sudden, all these people were like, you have got to be kidding. So that's why we always say, share your story. You're helping other people. It's opening up your life. It's making you kind of tap into what's been in your past that maybe has been kind of underlying all along, like we were saying.
Yes.
And it's made you who you are today.
That's wonderful. I love that so much. Wow. That's an amazing story. You were 13.
But you don't know when you're in it, you just do it. Like we all have stories, like you're just doing something. And then you look back and you're like, oh,
how did I do that?
That's one of those things I should put on my list. Like
correct.
An experience that I've lived through that it's like, I didn't die, like it wasn't
you
like
made it.
really scary or bad, but it was just, life. It was a bunch of circumstances that just were all put together that made it a big deal.
Absolutely.
So when you can put that into play now, you have that sense of confidence, that self-trust. You're like, dude, I did that. At that age, I can do this at this age. And I think that's maybe why we feel more confident now, because we've gone through so many experiences that we now put,
100%.
We're like, we did that.
Yeah. Yeah. If you get through that, you can get through so many things. All the things, really.
Yeah.
I love that.
But there is a sense of confidence that you do need to have to show up on the front, on the camera, on stage, in front of anyone. And that, I think, that is going within, and that is self-taught. That is really something that you need to practice on and work on every day. And I show up a lot on camera, and I do it naturally for myself, but I do it for her. I do it for my clients, for my friends, for other people, to say, I am here in this no filter thing, like in a headband, and that's just it. And this is how I'm showing up. And they're like, I can do that too.
That's wonderful. That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I love what you're doing.
Yeah. I do too. Thank you. I'm having so much fun. This is great.
I'm so glad. Can I ask you my next silly question?
I hope you would.
Yay. How was it to go surfing for the first time?
Okay, well, I'm actually going on Friday.
Oh, it's coming up on Friday, because this Friday's your birthday?
So this Friday's my birthday.
For some reason, I thought it was last Friday, but okay. Yep. Yes, happy early birthday.
Thank you. So to put this in perspective, in the very beginning of this call, I said I loved living in California. I've always dreamed about it. I've been a billion times. I never want to leave, but I'm obsessed with surfboards. And it's not even surf. It's like what it is? It's like the aura around it. It's the lifestyle. It's the mood. It's the vibe. It's the look. It's the flip-flops going down to the beach with the sand in your hair. just feeling good in your bathing suit and like nothing matters. And like, it's just this feeling. And so I see it in a surfboard and I take a ton of pictures of them. And I've never surfed. And it was one of these things where I was like, you know what? My 45th birthday is coming up. I mean, what can I really do that's like epic? And my girlfriend and I were talking and she was like, oh, my daughter's in surf camp. And then we looked at each other and we're like, don't they do like a women's surf night? And she's like, yeah, I'll look into it. And she was like, well, how about like the 23rd? And I was like, no. How about the 16th? She was like, okay. Like, that's my birthday. I can't wait until a week after. I want to do it on the very single day when I said, I want to do something big on my birthday. I'm turning 45. I've never surfed. I love surfboards. This is it. So
that's so wonderful.
I'm taking that me time.
Yes.
I told my husband, I told my kids, I'm like, I don't care if it's my birthday. I want to go surfing with my girlfriends. It's 6 to 7 at night. You guys can go and do your thing. I'm going to go do this. And then we'll have my dinner with you tomorrow night.
Yes.
You know, like make your happiness, make it happen for you, right? Do what you want, when you want. I'm not saying like, don't be mean about it. Like just explain yourself and be confident in your own self desires and your own self-interests. I'm not going to sit here and feel guilty and say to my girlfriends, no, we'll do it next week. I got to stay home and have dinner with my kids. Like, I don't. And maybe that's that like perpetual habit or that tradition where we're always like, well, I'm a mom. I have to have kids with my family. And I get that. That is a thing and that is beautiful. And you know what? I'm sure next year I'll be doing exactly that. I'm not poo-pooing it at all. I think it's great. But this year, I want it to be mine. I don't know. I just wanted to do something for me.
I think that's wonderful.
A milestone where I really remember going out and doing something that I've always thought of on this day. I'm
so excited for you.
Yeah. It's just so much more meaning. Thank you. I think
you have to let me know how it goes. I'm sure you're going to be taking pictures, so I'm excited.
My girlfriend's like, "How are you going to take pictures of yourself on a surfboard with us?" I'm like, "That's where you're going to come into play."
Yeah, that's so great.
Yeah.
So I think we've arrived. I think we've arrived to the important question. Are you okay?
I'm so okay.
You're more than okay.
More than okay. What is the word for more than okay? I am like over the top okay. I have to be okay. For me, for my family, for my clients, for my friends, for my followers. Like I am proud to be okay.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And you set that intention every night before you go to sleep, right? I love that.
Yep.
That's wonderful.
I'm ready in the morning to do it all over again.
Yes. I learned so much from you today. This was so wonderful. It honestly, like, I've been wanting to talk about confidence for a really long time. And it was just like one of those things. I was so happy you reached out because I love what you're doing. And I think you're really good at what you're doing. And it's something that everyone, I feel, has to confront. Not necessarily, I was about to say everyone struggles with, but like, I'm going to put it into a better context. Everyone has to acknowledge their confidence level at a certain point every day. And sometimes it's just very hard to unpack. And I was just so happy to be able to do this with you.
Thank you. Likewise.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Where can our listeners follow you?
Today with Tamara. I'm a lot on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook now with my coaching program called Confidence in Action. And that's really just a group of mostly women that share really cool insights on what it takes to be confident, where we're at, the real stuff, the showing up in your sweat, talking about your motivation. So that's where I'm mostly on social.
Fantastic. You're fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Are you okay?
Am I okay? No. Am I? I'm better than okay today. I'm just very grateful that my surgery went well, and that I'm, I get to have amazing conversations with people like you. I felt a little rusty today because it's been a couple of weeks since I recorded, but you made it so delightful and easy. And I'm very grateful. I never, years ago, if you would have told me I was doing a podcast, I wouldn't have believed it, because I like to act. And I think a big part of that is I like to be other people and not me. And so I was really surprised by like how much I love doing this, and I love learning from people like you, and I love just having great conversations and just creating these memories and meeting new amazing people. So I'm more than okay.
I like that answer.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And I will see you guys next time. This podcast was produced by Jason Crow and me, Pamela Portnoy, with music by Jordan Ross Weinhold. You can follow the show on Instagram and Facebook at No One's Okay, and please don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. We love kind reviews. No One's Okay is also on YouTube, so if you want to see our faces, please subscribe to our channel. An extra special thank you goes out to Sean Moore, Claire Palmer, Jackson Palmer, Tiffany Haymoff, and Alexa Marie Anderson. This podcast was recorded at Soundworks Studios. Thank you so much for listening. See you next time.